Dante Moore can have an all-time career at Oregon. You know, if he actually sticks around for a while.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for a bonus mailbag edition of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So many questions to get to. You guys have sent in a bunch of great ones. I didn't want to leave you hanging or make you wait till next week. No game today, but you get Locked On Ducks today. So at least there's that. This episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like Oregon's players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. Start with one about Dante Moore from one of my Locked On Ducks insiders out there. So I've been thinking about it, and I have an SSA. That, of course, is Spencer's scale of agreement. If Dante Moore stays at Oregon for at least one more year, if not two, he will win at least one Heisman and one national championship and go down as the best quarterback in Oregon history. Are we sure he's going to be around for another couple years? The quarterbacks in college football, there's some interesting NFL prospects out there. Tell me what Dante Moore is missing on this trajectory. Experience? Sure. He won't have had a ton. You know, Mitch Trubisky got taken second overall by the Bears. It didn't work out very well. But he'd only started for 1 year at North Carolina. We've seen it. I think this is where NIL comes into play in Oregon's benefit because historically, and I think this is true with Bo Nix when he came back for a second season with the Ducks as well, in the old days, they would have gone to the NFL because, well, I can go actually make money. Well, now you can make money in college football, and quarterback at the University of Oregon, nobody knows the exact numbers, at least they haven't said publicly. I can guarantee you it is a couple of $1 million. Not a bad gig. You weigh that against the risk of potentially getting injured, boosting your stock. I don't know. Mariota came back for an extra year. Bo Nix came back for an extra year. Dylan Gabriel didn't go to the NFL, came to Oregon for a final season. It worked out really well for those guys. So would I advise Dante Moore to return? I would. And look, we're only 5 games into the season, but man, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's currently the Heisman betting favorite at the moment. So if he comes back for one more year, if not two, it's hard to see how he wouldn't wind up winning a Heisman Trophy if he's already this good this early into his tenure with the Ducks. You know, think about, and again, I don't think you should get your hopes up about this, but this is just fun to daydream about. This is a mailbag Saturday episode of the show. Why the heck not? Think about the possibility of Dante Moore and DeCorian Moore together for a third straight season in the year 2027. That would be fun. So back to the SSA. If he stays for at least one or two, he'll win at least one Heisman and one national championship. You still need a lot of things to go right to do both of those things. Dante looks like he's incredibly capable of achieving both. I'm putting that at a... I'm almost scared to speak it into the microphone. I'm putting it at a 6. I'm putting that at a 6. He has looked further. This version of Dante Moore, I thought maybe we'd see this year, but not till the second half, or at least the second third of the season, after the bye. But he's just been this guy from the moment he started. He's ready. He's ready for college football. Is he ready for the NFL? That's his decision. So, Tyler sends this one in. Going into the season, Oregon had to replace 18 starters. At this point in the season, with how well everyone is playing, how many of those starters from last year is Oregon actually missing right now? Not including Evan Stewart. Missing as in they would be a significant upgrade or addition to what's on the field right now. I think it's only 5. Harmon, Birch, Caldwell, Tez, and Connerly honorable mentions. And Connerly. Honorable mentions, Bossa, Holden, Quarterback is better this year. Running back room better. Wide receiver solid. Offensive line's played great. Defensive lineman solid. DB room better. Linebackers close, but I think Mixon has stepped up. Josh Connerly is unquestionably, at this point in time, better than Isaiah World. I don't think you can really argue that. World has been fine, but Connerly last year, Isaiah World doesn't look like a first-round pick at this point in the season. He's got the physical traits to do it, but he has not played like it. So, I wouldn't say he's, a liability or he's been horrible. He's been fine. Josh Connerly last year, better than fine. So Connerly's definitely one. It's pretty tough to pick. I think you would put Jeff Bossa in the linebacker room. I do. I don't think that Devin Jackson has had the season that some of us thought he might or expected him to. He's another guy who's been fine. I'd rather have, a fully healthy Jeffrey Bossa in there. I think the receiver room from last year to this year, you add DeCorian. You said don't count Evan Stewart. DeCorian is certainly better than Tez, and that's saying something because Tez was great. If you had both of them out there and Gary Bryant, it's a freakishly good wide receiver room. That's tough. That's really the offensive line. I agree, has played great. The defensive line, I don't know. It's looking at what this defensive line is now, and I thought they'd be the best unit on Oregon's team coming into the season. Can I sit here and say they're, way ahead of where they were last year? Oregon won games with their defensive line a season ago. And you look at the NFL draft caliber guys that are on the line now, I think it's pretty similar to last year. I think what's so impressive about this group is the way they haven't allowed for much of a drop-off. I think with the extra year for some guys, particularly down the depth chart, you have more depth than you feel like you had a season ago, particularly on the interior. Last season it was really just Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell, and Amari Washington as defensive tackles. This year, you're starting with Bear Alexander and Amari Washington, who look awesome. But then you've seen a lot of Tioni Gray, Terrence Green, Aiden Breland into the fold. I think they're slightly deeper there, but man, last year's D-line was really, really good. So I think the D-line is a wash, and by the way, that's because both of these defensive lines have been absolutely phenomenal. Not because, in retrospect, last year's was good. Nope, last year's was every bit as good as I thought it would be. I said going into the year, best Oregon D-line in 10 years. It was. This one kind of seems like they're matching that level. I've given them their flowers all week on the show. They were the best unit for either team on either side of the ball in Happy Valley last Saturday, without question. They were the biggest individual reason from a unit standpoint that Oregon wound up winning the game. Not that everybody else didn't play well, but it was the defensive line that made things happen there. So back to the question, how many would you want? Definitely Oregon's better at safety. The secondary has outperformed my expectations so far this year. They look incredibly awesome. Jabbar Muhammad, Nico Reed, good players, but boy, it's hard to argue with what Brandon Finney and Iffy have done so far this season. They've been spectacular. So, yeah, I'd say you never turn down a Derek Harmon, as great as the DTs have been. I love Tatum Tuioti. I don't know how you turn down Jordan Birch. Jeff Bossa at linebacker, definitely. Josh Connerly at left tackle, definitely. Running back, I think, is a wash. Receiver, you'd put Tez in there, but do you feel like you need him? No. It's why this room is so great. So, yeah, not many. Not many. But those are the ones that immediately pop into my head. I think you'd put Terrence Ferguson into the rotation at tight end and have it be kind of like last year. T. Ferg is really good. So those guys, I think, would all play, would all start on the team. But everywhere else, man, the coaching staff has developed at a really, really high level and has the young guys playing really well. Bunch of more questions to get to. A new basketball transfer to talk about as well. Gosh, what a jam-packed Saturday show. Who said it's an off day for Oregon sports? I vehemently disagree. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, It's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. How could this week's moment that moves the game forward be anything other than Dylan Thieneman's game-clinching interception last week? Who doesn't want to keep reliving that game? It keeps coming up on the show. People keep asking me questions, and I just go back to, as much as I've talked about this game, as many takeaways there are, I still feel like there's some other things to get to. And oh, by the way, that was a really fun, awesome game. And so, yeah, that's the moment that won Oregon the game and silenced 111,000 fans and made Happy Valley into Sad Valley. That was a good time. The Oregon fans were not silent, and Lanning was shouting them out on the way out. It was great. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's start with Dante Moore. 248 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, couple of big fourth down runs, situationally great, doesn't turn the ball over. Heisman Trophy favorite. He completely deserves it. I did not think he'd be able to get there this year. I was wrong. I underestimated him. And you know what? I love watching that happen. And let's shout out the guy he's throwing the ball to more than anyone else, Corey Moore. You talk about living up to the hype. The 4th and 1 catch, the 3rd down play against A.J. Harris, led Oregon in receptions and yards, 7 for 89 in this game. They delivered for Oregon just like DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Check out DoorDash today. Turn of blue mystery liquid for today's second segment sip. Okay, flurry of questions from my Locked On Ducks insiders who I asked after the Penn State game. What are the questions on your mind after Oregon's big win? Here's some that came to their minds. How much did the Rose Bowl put a chip on Oregon's shoulder? Now, there are only a handful of guys this can actually apply to in a direct way. Now, someone like Ife Obadegwu, or what's another good example? Aaron Flowers, Kingston Lopa to a lesser extent, Dalen Austin, guys that were on the roster last year but weren't really players last year. I think it fuels you, but it's not the same as it is for Kenyon Sadiq, for Bryce Betcher. It is quite literally, for Oregon's leading tackler, the reason Bryce Betcher's here. If Oregon wins the national championship last year, Bryce Betcher is either starting his Major League Baseball career or in the NFL draft. I think he's said that openly, and I don't blame him whatsoever, because you want to end on the highest note possible, especially when you're a hometown kid, and Bryce Betcher has been really solid for Oregon at the linebacker spot so far this year. But when you were in that game and it went so horribly, yeah, I think it's definitely put a chip on Dan Lanning's shoulder. He was asked about it down at Big Ten Media Days and said, like, yeah, we're always looking forward, but certainly it's not something that he can keep out of his mind. And when you look at the way Dan Lanning is wired, he doesn't forget. I wouldn't be surprised if he wakes up regularly or goes to bed regularly thinking about that game and how he can overcome that, how he can be better, because he looks like a head coach, and the staff in general is one that just keeps getting better and better, and hopefully results in that one special season that we've all been waiting for a long time. So, for the guys that were in that game and really playing in it, I'd say it was probably, Poncho's into that discussion as well. I'd say it was probably a 10. For the guys that weren't, I'd say it's at least a 7, because you see that and you go, man, I want to change this. I want to. I haven't been in that position personally before as a player, but I don't think that's hard to imagine at all. As you can guess, these are really competitive guys. That was not a great day when you're a competitor. Another one. What are the 3 hardest remaining games? One of them is a week from the day this episode drops. Indiana is up there. I cannot make a list of the 3 hardest remaining games without putting Washington on the list. We'll see how they do against Maryland this week. Sneaky tough road game. Maryland's off to a 4-0 start, 3 easy opponents, but then they shellacked Wisconsin on the road last week. We know how tough it is to play at Camp Randall. It was a day game, but still. Their true freshman, Malik Washington's a good player. So Yeah, Washington on the road last week of the regular season. And then, the next hardest game, it comes down to whether you think it's Iowa or USC. Even though they lost to Illinois, I'm going with USC, even though it's at home. Iowa is just, Oregon should allow no more than 10 points, if that, to the Iowa offense. It's just pitiful. Like year in and year out. I don't know why Kirk Ferentz is still. At some point, it's going to come to an end, and Iowa's going to realize, oh, wait, we're actually a semi-respectable program that doesn't have to live with needing to score 20 points a game. Literally, his record, his win percentage is like over 90% when he scores over 20 points a game. Contrast that with Oregon that has scored 30 points and lost several times over the last few years. I don't think Kirk Ferentz has ever lost when he scores 30 points in a game. It's ridiculous that they are just so stuck in their ways down there. So, yeah, I'm more scared of and it's relative. I'm more worried about USC's offense than I am Iowa's defense. They gave up 28 points to Rutgers. I think Oregon can score. Their defense is good. They kept Indiana in check, held them 20 points last week. I'm not saying to overlook that, and it's a cupcake game. But between the two, yeah, USC worries me more. They're a more complete football team. They're more explosive, can stay around in a game. Yeah, I definitely pick USC. I think Indiana's the most complete team that Oregon will play. I'm still going to put them second. The Washington game, I never overlook the rivalry factor in college football. So I'll go Washington, Indiana, USC in that order. Win-loss prediction the rest of the year. Look, until I see a dramatic shift in the style and level of play from the team, I'm not going to pick them to lose a regular season game the rest of the year. We'll see how I feel if they do that going into the Big Ten championship game, because they'd be there, of course, if they win the rest of their games. They're going to be favored in every game. I don't expect in my head at a 100% level that they're going to win all those games, because college football is hard and upsets happen. However, I think it is more likely than not they wind up going 12-0 again. I had them 11-1 before the year and losing to Penn State. So now that they went and outperformed my expectations there, yeah, I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction. So I think 12-0 is more than on the table. It would be at least a little surprising. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be a little surprised, depending on the game, if Oregon doesn't go 12-0 this year. But again, not shocked. This is college football. Crazy, wild things happen. Is Dan Lanning the best head coach in college football? Well, it is pretty hard to put him outside of the top 5. We know he's better than James Franklin. Why don't we keep him behind Ryan Day? Why don't we keep him behind Kirby Smart? Those guys have won a national championship, of course. Lanning hasn't. He's a much younger head coach, obviously. But, yeah, I don't know who you would look to and definitively say, I think Sark at Texas has done a good job. I wouldn't rather have him over Dan Lanning. DeBoer is an interesting one because he's got the head-to-head, but boy, he has gone to Alabama and it has not gone well. Now they're looking better. So I'll go with no on is Dan Lanning the best head coach in college football. Is he in the top 5? Absolutely. And he's closer to the top 3 probably than being outside the top 5. Here's another fun one. How many coaches will Dan Lanning put on the hot seat? Well, he's already contributed to the firing of Mike Gundy, so there's one. He's also been a contributor to a potential firing one day of Trent Bray at Oregon State. We'll see if that happens, because there are financial concerns there that are not as easy to rectify as it would be at Oregon. And Lincoln Riley could I'm going to emphasize the could here, because, again, I think USC is a good team. I don't know if they're a great team, but I think they are a good team, and that can be enough to save his job. But if they lose 3 more times before they play Oregon, and then he goes 7-5 with a loss to the Ducks, then, yeah, that could definitely move in that direction. But, Lanning, if USC loses 1 time between now and then loses to Oregon, Lincoln Riley that is, and goes 9-3, he's not getting fired, nor should he, because that would actually be progress from what they were a season ago. So that one's not in Lanning's control. But Kirk Ferentz, there's one. Iowa's already lost a couple times this year. They'll lose more. Maybe they decide, all right, it's time to end this era that has been around since 1999. I think Kirk Ferentz has been the head coach at Iowa since that time. So, yeah, I'd say at least one more. At least, but Luke Fickell at Wisconsin as well. Like that outcome could not single-handedly. Well, Wisconsin at that point in the year, actually, very, very possible that it could single-handedly result in, this is Luke Fickell's last game. But if you're talking about an outcome that contributes to other coaches being relieved of their duties, Wisconsin is one, Iowa is one, USC outside chance, Washington no, Rutgers probably not, Minnesota I don't think so. Indiana obviously not. So I think at least one more, maybe two, as many as three. So the over-under is probably there at 1.5 at Spencer's Sportsbook. So fun questions there. A new transfer to talk about on the hardwood that I'm excited. And yes, there are more football questions, including that glorious, wonderful running back room. First, this episode brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ, it's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I have taken a greater interest in my own personal fitness as well. Sometimes it can be tough because I'm so busy this time of year. Peloton's a way for people with busy lives like you or me or many other people to get the fitness you need every single week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Keep yourself moving forward. Keep pushing just like Oregon will this season. You can as well. Check them out at One Peloton. That's OnePeloton.com. OnePeloton.com. So how about basketball making some news? You know what? I'm here for it. I'm more than a little intrigued to see what this Oregon basketball team is going to be this season. A lot of question marks, some potential, couple key returners, and a bunch of new faces. Season starts in a month, by the way, from when this show airs. November 4th against Hawaii is game one. Oregon should win that one pretty comfortably. It's a bye game, but they will have a new player that we'll see what kind of a role he has. But Wei Lin is a unique newcomer to the Oregon basketball lineup this year. He is the first Chinese Basketball Association professional to sign with an American college team. I believe he was going to consider entering the NBA draft, decided to sign with the Ducks instead. And over in the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, he's a 6'2" guard. Last year, he averaged 21 points and 5.5 assists. He shot 37% from three. He gets a lot of elevation on his jump shot and makes a lot of plays in the mid-range area. I think I saw a couple highlights of him going against Young Henson, the Portland Trailblazers first-round center as well, and he shot at 88% from the foul line. Now, where does he fit into this rotation? I don't know. I think guard depth makes some sense. There were a couple of guys, Desmond Claude from USC, that Oregon was reportedly looking at, and he wound up, I believe, going to Washington, if I remember correctly. And he's someone who I really wanted Oregon to go out and get. Yeah, Desmond Claude was the guy because he's a proven scorer in the backcourt. And I don't think Wei Lin comes in and you might see his name Lin Wei somewhere as well. It's the same thing when the Blazers drafted Young Hansen. With the way I don't speak Chinese, some of the Chinese names, I think, sometimes go back and forth with when it's the first name and last name, or depends on how you're addressing them. But Wei Lin is the way that, no pun intended, that I've seen it, that I've seen it written, basically. So I don't fully know what to expect when you bring over international guys, and Oregon's brought in 2 international guys within the last month and a half or so that are really late additions. TJ Bamba and Supreme Cook last year were late additions in like late May, in the middle of June. And Dana Altman's just been working, and now it feels like the roster's set. He's immediately eligible for the season and has got playmaking and shooting potential. When you play internationally, even if it's in a professional league, I'm always hesitant to say that you're going to come to American Division I college basketball and just be an immediate high-impact player, because it's not always the highest level of play. Like, there are a lot of guys that play, professionally overseas for many years, and they, were like solid mid-major basketball players in the United States, or at an even lower level than that. So I'm interested to see how this works out, but Oregon has been so front court centric with their offseason additions. It makes sense they'd go get another guard, and now I think everybody is, I think they're done adding guys to the roster, I would think, since you brought him in just over a month before the season begins. And I'm excited. I'm always excited to watch basketball because I love college basketball like I love college football. And it's about a month away. And by the way, plenty of you ask me all the time, when are you going to be at an Oregon game? Are you going to get to this one or that? I am going to be at the Oregon game against Auburn with their head coach, Stephen Pearl, because Bruce Pearl retired. That's a huge game, by the way, for Oregon's non-conference resume, in Las Vegas on November 24th. I will be at that game because it's just a couple hours away from me. So if you want to meet up there anytime, let me know, and we can make that happen. So wanted to get in there and I wanted to hop in and talk about the new basketball transfer, because I had heard some rumblings that this was going to happen, and then they officially announced it, and then I looked up and realized, oh my gosh, season's like just over a month away as I'm recording the show. So, back to football. Liam, could you see Dierre Hill and Jordon Davison reaching a Nick Singleton or Katron Allen or Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price type of level? What do you think the ceiling with them truly is? Thanks as always. Your audio does not cut out for those of you on podcasts. Jeremiah Love is the best running back in college football, is why I'm hesitating here. Now, do Dierre Hill and Jordon Davison look like NFL caliber guys? They do. Jordan James got drafted in the 6th round, and he did not have as big of an impact as a true freshman. I mean, frankly, he and Davison really similar as true freshmen, but Davison and Hill both, I think, can be even better than Jordan James, who was a darn good running back for 3 years with the Ducks. Jeremiah Love is the best running back in all of college football. It is not particularly close. He's awesome. Can they get to that type of level? That's asking, man. If I'm going to put that at Spencer's scale of agreement, I'm not putting that any lower than a 4. And frankly, I'm probably going to put it at a 5 and say it's just as likely to happen as not, because these dudes just look special right now. But the bar that you're setting here is that you've got 2 basically first 3 or 4 round NFL running backs. Does Oregon have that? I think so. Interested to see what else Jordan Davison can do. I think he, like Jordan James, he can do more than just be a short yardage guy. Going forward, if one of them were to become a Jeremiah Love type, that would be Dierre Hill. And could I see them reaching that sort of level? Yes. Understand how high of a bar that is. As talented as they have looked, those tandems are elite. But 2 years from now, gosh, it is kind of hard to see how they don't get to be a top 3 or 4 running back tandem in the country. Something that came to me that possibly you can talk about if it isn't already on your list. Huge win, but they still have the season left. Can't let the mind games like we did and then last year and then fall flat. They prepared so much for this game now. Bye week, or think we did what we did and take for granted we can beat anyone. A letdown. Keep the hunger. This is not the most beautifully worded question out there, but I get where you're going for. That's up to the coaching staff now. One of the toughest things when you're coaching college athletes, keeping them in the right frame of mind, whether you're having a tough stretch in the season or whether you're having a great stretch of the season. How did Oregon play after they beat Ohio State last year? They played very well, frankly. They went on to win the Big Ten championship game and played a lot of good football before that. So, similar spot, very, very similar spot. I think that experience from the coaching standpoint should give you confidence that they'll be able to avoid that. Last one for today. And I know there have been other questions that have been sent in. I'll get to those next week as well. Tyler, bye-week media question. How does Oregon choose who speaks to the media during the week and after the games? Well, you heard Eric Skopel, my Everydayers, did earlier this week say that true freshmen don't ever talk to the media. My understanding is players do have the right of refusal to say, no, I'm not going to. Coaches don't. Coaches have it worked into their contracts. They have to do media appearances and interviews. They can't say no. I think players are able to. Some are just more comfortable with it than others. But generally speaking, I think the coach decides, who he wants to come and speak for the team after the game. It's usually, for a post-game presser based on performance. And, if the true freshman rule is universally applied, then obviously that rules a couple of guys out. But, typically I think that we hear, you asked later in the question, DeCorian's the number one receiver in the country. We haven't seen him at a post-practice media session for post-game. Skopel mentioned that on Thursday's show that they don't do that with true freshmen, which makes sense. There's a lot that true freshmen need to be focused on. But doing media availability, like for some guys it's hard, for some guys it's easy. Obviously, I'm very comfortable in that setting. But for a lot of guys it isn't. And if they don't want to, then I don't think they should necessarily have to. How often do I have player interviews on this show? Like twice a year during Big Ten Media Days? That's kind of it. So, if media people look at like Deshaun Foster, before he got fired, limited media availability, and everybody in the press down there for the Bruins, not everyone, but a couple of different guys kind of raised hell about it and were like, man, I can't believe why are you doing this? I'm like, I get why you want it. I guess you're used to it and it's traditional and whatnot, but you should be able to put content out there and provide coverage of a team without having to, talk to a player or a coach all the time. Just my particular take on it. But yeah, typically it's based on how guys perform in the game. Someone that has a great game and someone that has enough experience and that coaches want to come out and speak for the team. So that's quite the bonus show. That's just a full show, really what we call it. Back on Monday as well. All the Indiana questions, send them to me. Let me know. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.